Hey guys, how's it going? Steve here from Learning As I Draw. This is the first video I'm doing with me in it. This is going to be a review of the Cintiq 13 HD. Sorry about the rubbish setup, bit of a crappy desk and stuff. I am a student, so I live in a student house, so there's not much I can do about that. And I realise I look like an idiot with a headset on, but gotta record sound somehow, right? So I'm going to start just by letting you know what actually comes in the box, what you get with the Cintiq. I think I've got everything on the desk. So first of all, CD, just with drivers. I think you can actually get all the drivers online anyway. In fact, I think it recommends that you go online even using the disc and make sure you've got the latest drivers. You get a microfiber cloth, really good for keeping your screen clean, I guess. The Cintiq itself, which I hope is pretty obvious, and the wire, which I'll go into a bit more detail in a second and explain that. The pen comes in a pretty cool case. Not sure if you can see that from there, but it has like 9 extra nibs in, a little metal ring bit which I believe is to get the nib out and use it to replace it, and then a couple of different coloured rings, I guess you'd call them, which you can just replace on the end of the pen. I'm not sure if you can make it out from there or not. The pen is pretty decent. You get the pen with it as well, and then a little Wacom pot for your pen, I guess you'd call it. You also get a stand to go with it, which is just on the underneath. You can put it underneath even if you don't want the Cintiq stood up, even if you're going to use it flat down. I'm still experimenting with that, getting used to it. I think that is everything you get with it. I would recommend getting a smudge guard as well, but I'll do another video, a really short video on that, just mentioning that. So some more sort of the specs, a bit more detail. I'll start with the wires. The wire you get plugs into the Cintiq itself, obviously, and into your plug socket, so you will need a spare plug socket. And it has 2 more bits. One USB goes into the back of your desktop or your tower, and a HDMI port which also goes into the back of your PC or your laptop. I think it's the actual graphics card port that it goes into, and with me, and I've heard a lot of people complaining about this, you do need a HDMI adapter depending on whether your PC can take a HDMI lead or not. Mine was, I think, a mini HDMI port, so I need to get an adapter for that. Luckily I already had one, but as I say, I've heard a lot of people complaining about that. The display size of the screen diagonally is, I think it's 13.3 inches, which is about 34 centimeters, and it's full HD, 1920 by 1080, so pretty high resolution. Can't really get better as far as I'm aware, but I'm not too sure. The stand that comes with it is adjustable. As I mentioned before, you can have it on several different levels or just flat. It's more than you need, in my opinion. And you get several different hotkeys. I think there's 9 hotkeys, so you can set them yourself. Essentially you've got more than that, because one of the hotkeys essentially works as about 8 different hotkeys, but you'd have to see it in more detail to understand that. And also the pen has 2 buttons on it, and the back works as an eraser. Essentially, the Cintiq sort of acts as a second screen. You can play around with the settings under like the resolution settings and your screen settings, and you can set it to duplicate your monitor, which works pretty well, or you can set it to extend from your monitor, which basically acts as a second screen. So I'll just show you. For example, I've got Photoshop open on my Cintiq. I could drag this across onto this screen and vice versa with anything I've got open. That's pretty handy for if you were working on Photoshop on your Cintiq and maybe you're working from a reference and you want a reference image on your monitor. Or another good option is to open whatever you're working on in a new window, set it on your monitor, zoomed out, zoom in on your Cintiq, so that whilst you're working on that, you can sort of see what you're doing from a zoomed out view. Doesn't sound like much, but it's actually really useful. Some of the pros and cons of it, well, before this I was using a Bamboo Wacom Fun, which is not one where you draw on the screen, it's one where it just sort of picks it up like most graphics tablets. So for me this was a massive jump, I guess, and in that sense you can't really fault it. It's better in pretty much every way. Some of the cons are they're not enough to put you off, but the colours on the Cintiq, although they're almost the same, I noticed that on my monitor well, I can do something on my Cintiq and it'll look right, and then I'll drag it along onto my monitor, and although it still looks right, you can see that the colours are not exactly the same. I've noticed that mainly with shades of grey and skin tone, but it's not that much, and it shouldn't be enough to put you off. It's really not that bad. Worst case scenario, if at the end of a piece, what I do is duplicate the screen so I can see it on both, and then use this in the same way I use my old graphics tablet to actually draw on the monitor screen. I guess you class it as a con. Well, most people would, the price of it, because they are really expensive, but you can't really get any other graphics tablet of the same quality for around that price, so if you want one, I'm afraid you're going to have to pay that. One thing I was worried about when I was searching for it was I heard a lot of people complaining about the wire here, that it's always slipping out. It might do for some people, especially if you're moving it around a lot, but for me personally, it's not come out once yet. I mean, I've only had the Cintiq for 3 weeks or so, it's still pretty new to me, but I've not had any problems like that, and that is one thing that I was worried about at first. One thing that is important to mention, although this is a huge step up from most graphic tablets, it is really good, but it's not like drawing on pencil on paper, which a lot of reviews I saw before getting it all said, oh yeah, it's just like using pencil and paper. I wouldn't quite say that, but it's decent. I can't imagine getting better in terms of digital art, so I'm not faulting it, but just something to be aware of. It's not quite like drawing pencil and paper, or not in my opinion anyway. The big thing for me, when I was looking around before I bought the graphics tablet, because obviously before you spend such a huge amount, you want to research into it, which is why I'm making this video. Hopefully it'll help some of you. A lot of the artwork I do is save a full body of a character on a portrait type piece of paper in the settings, presets of Photoshop. I think I usually use the US A4 paper, I think it's called. I'm not sure how well you can see the Cintiq screen from there, but my worry was out of the screen, because the screen is like a landscape, it's not going to be big enough to draw a full character on in detail, and that really was a massive thing for me, but I took the plunge and got one anyway, and it's fine. It still may look small to some people, but it's really easy to use, and you can zoom in, and that shouldn't be enough to put you off either. There's probably loads more I could say about it, but I don't want the video to go on for far too long, and I don't want to bore you all to death. But long story short, I can't really see you getting something this good quality aside from the next sizes up. So if you've got the money, and maybe don't have to be a professional, but if you want to be a professional or you take art seriously, digital art, then I would say it is worth getting. One final thing, actually, I can't review it in terms of comparison with the bigger Cintiqs, because there's like, I think, 24-inch, and that was another concern for me, that this just wasn't going to be big enough in comparison with them. But although I've not used one, a lot of people who have got one said to me, although they're good, it's sort of a small one, you can just move your wrist around, like drawing on paper, whereas having a huge screen, you've got to move your arm all over the place, and said it's not ideal. I mean, maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration, but hopefully you see what I mean. So yeah, I would definitely say they're worth getting if you take art seriously. And I think that's pretty much it. If you've got any questions about it or anything, leave them in the comments section below. I'll try my best to give you my opinion on it, and I'll do another really short video just on the smudge guards, because they're pretty important. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please check out some of my other videos and subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys.